Hello, hello. Welcome to our Self-Management Week webinar hosted today by Danielle Farrel. Hi, Danielle.
Hiya.
So, probably better for us to start a little bit about what Self-Management Week is. I suppose the whole idea of what self-management is. There's lots of different definitions. What do you think are the most important bits?
For me, I think it's you'll get lots of definitions, as you said, but these ones might look at managing your diagnosis, and your the symptoms of that possibly, and how it impacts day to day. But for me, it's about taking more of a holistic approach and looking at how the person manages their whole life, and the symptoms and the disability being a small part of that, but looking at how they manage every aspect of life.
Perfect. Yeah. No, exactly. So if we'll just share just now a little bit of the Alliance's self-management description. So they describe it as a way of living and working that means people living with long-term conditions feel more in control of their own health and well-being. So as you say, that's much more holistic than some of the other definitions, which are more process-driven. They're more about how you manage your symptoms and that kind of stuff. And obviously, Alliance has got their Gone Yourself, the self-management strategy for Scotland. So would recommend people check that out. And they describe about supporting people to live their lives better on their terms and access to information, develop skill about what's right for you and your condition, that kind of stuff. So they've got several things they say: being better informed about your condition, being prepared for everyday challenges, and better supported when they need it. So let's have a think about that kind of stuff. So first of all, let's have a think about what works for you. What do you think is super important to think about when you think about self-management?
We're just picking up on some of what you read there. For me, one of the things that was key was having support when they need it or when the person needs it, and not being dictated to by service land or whatever word you choose to use to describe what sometimes happens when people don't have choice and control around when they're supported. But for me, like I said just at the beginning, self-management is looking at my whole life, and that can range from decisions about how I'm supported and what equipment is used, to using technology or managing or having the equipment at home to manage my help manage my physical health, which then has a positive impact on my overall well-being. And that's just a few examples.
Right, absolutely. We've got a comment come in from Karen as well. Really agreeing with you. The holistic approach is so much more reflective of the person being a unique individual and not just a label or diagnosis. Yes, so I guess that whole thing, it's about it not being the medical model of you're coping because you're managing your symptoms. It's you're an individual hopes and dreams, and how you're managing that helping you to live a good life.
Yeah.
So thinking about some of the things that you've just talked about. So you've talked about practical, physical things. You've talked about thinking about diagnosis and that kind of stuff. some of that seems to be about power as well as actual just practice.
Yeah, and I think it's also about perhaps gaps in knowledge, because I think if we're honest, we're human and we can't all know everything about everything. But when you and I were having a chat prior to just now, my first thought was reflecting back to when I was about 12, 13, and I had reached a point where equipment would help in terms of transferring rather than being lifted by, at that time, my parents. Um, and the automatic answer, the gut answer was, okay, it's time. Maybe we need to have a chat about getting a hoist. But at this point, I was at a additional support needs secondary school, and had started using a standard there, and I said to my OT at the time, don't need to use a hoist. I know I need equipment, but can I not? Can we not look at a standard as opposed to a hoist? And actually, we did. And too many years later, I'm still I'm still using the standard equipment, so it just shows that it works really well.
So that in that situation though, that was you suggesting it to a health professional,
Yeah.
rather than the health professional saying, "Look, we've got a range of options here." If you hadn't had that experience up to that point, do you think you would have known to suggest that?
No, no, absolutely not. And it would have been automatically using a hoist. And since then, I've had challenges where, again, professionals have said, do you not think using a hoist would be better? At each point, I've proven why this wouldn't be the best option, and that I can actually continue to transfer using the standard. So we were talking about some of that this morning, but it's not just about you using the standard transfer. It's about how, if I didn't use that, I would pretty much permanently be in a sitting position, which would then affect other things, like not only the strength in my legs and other parts of my body, but also things like digestion and the more clinical things like bowel movements and things like that people don't automatically think about, or things like just the
Yeah.
bigger picture, like what we've just been talking about. Yeah.
No, for sure. So I mean, you've got strength, you've got balance, you've got so keeping the blood flow going, taking the pressure off, because you can get pressure sores from sitting in one position for too
Yeah.
long. When we were talking in preparation for this, you also said about the importance of being able to change your position to, like later on in the day, things like that.
Yeah, so I think as well for me, it's knowing and being able to recognise when like these, with all the best will in the world, I can confidently tell people that wheelchairs aren't comfortable if you've been in them all day, but they're a must. So I get to a certain point of the day, most days, where I'm like, no, I need to change my position. So for me, that might be coming out and sitting in my comfy chair, as I call it, or maybe sitting on my bed just to relax and watch TV. But again, it's knowing that when you get to that point and just being like, yeah, I need to go into different position. And as I said to you earlier when we were chatting, Alistair, I've also had some ridiculous conversations where I've been glad that other people have been present, where I was going for a new wheelchair at one point, and I was saying that my existing wheelchair was uncomfortable, and the person that was the bioengineer at the time was like, "Oh yeah, but wheelchairs aren't for sitting in," and I was kind of like, "What did you just say there?" I was like, "I'm not sure what you want me to do then. Go to uni in my bed." I don't know.
What are they for? Are they for stunts? What are they for?
I don't really know.
So I guess a lot of the examples you've been given there is about you fitting in with the system,
Yeah,
and people maybe picking the thing that's more easy for the professional. It's more something that's not going to have to be changed, so you can do so. Oh, here's June coming in with a comment. So people sometimes know better than professionals what equipment is best suited to themselves. Danielle has just explained sometimes it's more down to personal experience than professional knowledge. So, yeah, I was just starting to talk about that. I guess that whole thing about, and I guess that's part of that planning stuff about how do you feel confident? I mean, I guess you've had a lot of experience through both your personal life and through your the job you have with your options are student now with In Control Scotland in terms of advocating for people, helping people to dream and plan. But
yeah,
there's still a power imbalance for some people feeling like they can make suggestions, especially if it's somebody saying, no, I think this would be the best
yeah,
equipment
absolutely.
and stuff.
And yeah, and we can discuss that in a bit more detail. But I know that you had another example that you thought was maybe relevant from your experience
Yeah,
of, of
yeah,
figuring.
absolutely. Yeah, so again, it's a kind of a health related example, and it's about the issue of when somebody's got a life limiting condition, when somebody's got a degenerative health condition, and you're trying to help the person keep their mobility, keep their independence, and keep their health as best they can. So I used to manage a team supporting people in the community, and there was a young woman who had a condition which meant she needed gradually she needed more help managing her going to the toilet, and basically she was needing to use a catheter to go to the toilet. Now, I got a notification from the Health and Social Care Partnership saying that they would no longer be seeing this type of support as kind of, the work to be done by my support workers that were in my team. Now, it was an interesting one because they said that they felt this was a medical procedure. Now, I guess it is medical in terms of it's invasive and it's quite private and it's something to do with your health. But the point that I made back was this is something that mum does for her daughter, right? So it's a family member. It's not something that's exclusively done by healthcare professionals. And it was mum that showed the staff that were working directly with her. The staff had been working with her for several years, never had a urine infection, really great relationships. And the question I had was, so what's going to happen to her if we stop doing this? And essentially it was going to have to be like a community nurse coming out and doing this. So basically she couldn't go out to do any of her planned activities because it could only be at specified times and at home. So it would either need to be her mum or it would need to be a nurse. So we're creating another demand on the system for something that a family member could already do. And it was going to have a severe restriction on her life. And so I helped to argue against it. And we won the discussion in terms of us saying that we could continue to do that. However, frustratingly, the response was also that if that same situation was to come up tomorrow, they still wouldn't, if they wouldn't consider it to be appropriate. And I suppose that's one of the frustration things I think that we've often talked about, is that sometimes even when we put forward all the logical bits and all the emotional bits and all the heart and the head bits together, still sometimes the processes don't come up with the right answer. So we can still end up actually disadvantaging somebody.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good time to go back to what you just mentioned about the importance and the positive impact that person-centered planning can have on a person's self-management. And it's also relevant to mention because the self-management fund has recently approved some funding for a part of Mind Control's work in developing a person-centered planning academy, or that's the term we're going with at the moment. Whether it stays that term when we develop it a bit more, who knows? But thanks to the self-management fund, we're able to do that. So that was, it's important to mention in relation to self-management how important person-centered planning can be. And I think both myself and yourself, Alistair, we can, from a professional point of view, say that we've done this successfully and supported quite a number of people through that person-centered planning journey.
100%. So it's an interesting, it's another layer, isn't it, to self-management, is it? Because on the one hand, this will be supporting people with lived experience to plan themselves, but it'll also give that chance for people to have an additional income and to be able to plan for others. So there'll be that kind of like the personal development, and then the how it impacts on others. So that's really great to see that layers of empowerment and really the positive learning from person-centered planning happening, wider across the community.
Yeah, and I think as well, you were just saying about that women that you'd been supporting, with the whole need for the right support and managing being catheterised, but also to let her live a life. So person-centered planning, I don't know if that was something that person had engaged with, but at that point, if she hadn't engaged with it, perhaps a person-centered plan would have been useful at that point to let the professionals see that she needs to live a life and a fulfilled life, and sitting about all day, every day, waiting for professionals to come in to catheterise her wouldn't have allowed or enabled her, even is a better word, to do that. And it wouldn't have enabled her to aspire and to achieve what she wanted to achieve.
100%, and we need to spell that out really. Brett's come in with a comment as well. So people are whole, yet how we support somebody is segmented.
Absolutely, yeah.
So again, it's that thing about from each person's point of view, we can have our little blinkers on. We can say this makes sense to me because I can enable it, or I can see the risks, or I can see this. But it's a thing that we often talk about is what's the risk of not doing something? What's the risk of leaving somebody alone and isolated, or reducing their mobility, or that? It still feels like people are much more accountable for what they do rather than what they don't do. So if you deny somebody an opportunity like we've just described.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come back with another point here. Sorry,
yeah.
Just move my dog's head. He's decided to lick my mouse. Honestly, the joys. Never work with children and animals, as they say. Everyone has a view in your life and the use of time without living in your home with your family issues and family pleasures. So again, that comes back to that power thing again, doesn't it? And just people judgment.
Also comes back to the diagnosis and being defined by your diagnosis. Because if I use myself as an example, anyone watching who's heard me speak or just have a conversation with them, they'll probably at some point hear me say that my CP or my cerebral palsy doesn't define me, and that's something I stand by strongly. But if you're in a position where services and professionals are making you feel isolated and taking the opportunities away from you, then you automatically always become defined by your disability or diagnosis, because professionals are be unfair to say always in these situations because you don't know, but often could be being led by the theory around cerebral palsy or whatever, when actually cerebral palsy is, I often say, my cerebral palsy, because cerebral palsy will be different for everybody who lives with it. So that's important to remember, and for professionals to remember that.
So I guess we've got another comment from June, but just before we come back to that, I'm just wondering, what do you think professionals can best do to be good allies to disabled people in their circumstances? What would you ask people to think about when they're supporting folk to self-manage?
Talk to me, or there'll be a lot of people that they can't communicate for themselves or advocate for themselves, and in that case talk to the people around them that know them best. Never assume, because as saying goes, assuming makes an ass out of you and me, because it does. If you assume and you don't speak to people, and you listen, because I would say hear, but you can hear what somebody says without actually listening. So listen to what somebody says and actually take that on board. And if you don't know or it makes you feel uncomfortable, then acknowledge that. And sometimes you have to, as we say quite often, sometimes you have to get to a point where you're comfortable with being uncomfortable, because when it's going to happen when you're working around disabilities, because for a lot of people it's not their normal. So to hear about it being somebody else's normal, and they're thinking that you know about these things until you actually hear the reality of it, then yeah.
That's all really good points, and I guess the partly going along with that is that the moving away from the professional fixer mindset, that people have to come in with the answers, and the idea that the answers have to be things that the professionals have to provide. Because unless people are prepared to go through and explore all the things that might work for you together, and not just jump straight to a conclusion, they're bound to then restrict the options to things that they're in control of, and that then limits where you're going to get to. I've also got a comment here from June. Some decisions are taken away from people by professionals. This is harder to do when a person's specific choices are set out in their own person-centered plan. So that's good stuff. I don't want it to feel like we're all negative about professionals, because we're also professionals as well.
Some really good practices out there, and that is important to remember. That it's just how we celebrate those, and how we broaden those out to make them more available to more people.
Yeah, absolutely. Thinking about what works, what really works, what makes a difference, and I guess so. Some of the other things that I guess that you've done to help you manage things better. I mean, you're quite adventurous with smart tech. You've tried quite a few different things with that.
Yeah, I've actually had to turn her down today in case she decides to join in the conversation because that's quite a common occurrence. But yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people watching might have heard my experience of smart technology, but for anybody who doesn't, I have a piece of smart technology, an Alexa. Hopefully, she won't speak now that I've said that. But I now have the Echo Show 8 sitting on the shelf beside me, and she that little box has given me so much more independence, so I can open and shut my own blinds. I can turn on household appliances that I couldn't before. So my TV, my wax melt, I can turn on my desk light, all because they're connected to a smart plug. It also makes me feel safer in my own home, which is important to point out because I have it connected to the Ring doorbell so it can come up on screen who's at the door before I decide whether I'm answering it or not. And most recently, I have it connected to an Alexa powered kettle, so I can sit here and I can ask her to boil the kettle in the kitchen, which is good because before I had a 1 cup kettle, which is great because yeah, Pauline's even saying she puts the kettle on because she's even boiled the kettle when Pauline's been here. So yeah, Pauline has witnessed that. But yeah, that in itself, previously I had a 1 cup kettle which I could boil, but I actually can lift the cup once it has boiling water in it anyway. So the Alexa powered kettle will boil the kettle and it'll also keep the water warm for like 2 hours. So that's technically better because if I had visitors or whatever, then I would need to do it more than once, probably, and it would keep it warm.
So again, and that's an important point because that some of that smart tech is about stuff from the mainstream rather
Yeah,
than
absolutely.
stuff without the disability price tag of
Yeah.
a lot of specialist equipment. I mean, a lot of the time before you'd be looking at very, very expensive pieces of smart tech that were specific
Yeah.
to control things, and this is much more mainstream now.
Yeah, and that's important because, and admittedly, I will say that I've, particularly when I was a teenager, when you're just realizing that when you're living with a disability, you're maybe different to your non-disabled peers and all that. So I'd say more so when I was a teenager, not so much now, but I think I'm conscious of it now as well. You sometimes feel that you don't want equipment that's going to make you different to other people. So nearly everyone has an Alexa or a Google, whatever you call it in your home, Google, whatever it's called. But it's the same idea
Yeah.
that they do the same thing with the can be controlled by the voice. So and nearly everyone has it. So it's not any different to like anyone else, I guess.
So it's something that's cool and it's tech
Yeah.
rather than something that's problematic.
And it's
Um,
also, as you said, not with a disability price tag, so it's more economic and more practical for people to
Yes.
buy.
Okay, and coming, so that's really good. Karen's come back just when we're talking about good stories as well. So a brilliant interaction with an OT recently. The installation of a handrail, allowing my son to go up and down the stairs himself. That attitude and approach was fantastic in supporting our family.
Yeah,
Some fab professionals out there. So it's about that. I guess it's that
absolutely.
thing about that support to listen to folk and to do the things in the way that makes sense to you. But that's
And
really good.
it goes back to what we talk, what we as a team often talk about, the importance of having those good and equal conversations. Um, so all of that is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's knowledge is power. Yes.
Thanks, Bet.
Yes. Always come up with a solution. Absolutely. And that's the thing. It's that there's always a solution to every problem, but that some of those solutions require everybody to get on board, don't they?
Yeah.
Talking of getting on board public transport.
Yeah.
How would you say that that's affected you? You know.
It's been challenging. It's probably the politest word I could use for it. Up until very recently, I've had to rely solely on public transport. Especially since moving into my own house, which scarily will be 8 years next week. But it's work because I made it work.
Yeah.
But it's not worked at the same time because you and I'm sure a lot of people watching can empathise with this, but or they'll know somebody who can empathise with it. But if I'm talking taking trains for example, you book the assistance in advance because how dare you be spontaneous when you have a disability, but you have to book assistance in advance. And then, so you do that through the app or over the phone, and then you get there, and then the assistance that you book's not there, so you've not able to get in the train. And more recently, somebody higher up somewhere thought it was a good idea to take the ramps away from smaller stations, which further reduced your capability to get on a train if you had a disability, because even if you booked as assistance, the staff at the station couldn't help you. So there had to be a ticket inspector on the train, and there was circumstances where I know not only myself but others um, had booked the assistance, and then the train came along and there wasn't a ticket inspector on, so therefore you couldn't get on the train because there would be nobody to get you off at the other side unless you were going to one of the main stations like Glasgow or whatever where there was staff. So yeah, it can be quite a nightmare in that respect, but it's important to say when it works and the assistance is all booked the way and it all goes the way it should. It works really, really well. And the assistant staff are really, really nice and really accommodating. And in fact, because I used to travel on the train quite a bit, I had quite a good relationship with most of them. So it was it's important to say that it works really well when it works. But I'm also glad to say that I now don't have to face those challenges on a regular basis. I might still use the train on occasion, but I now have my own vehicle. The staff drive for me, so my PA team will drive it for me. So that's really a positive step for me, and I'm sure a lot of people watching can agree with that. And it just opens up so many other doors and opportunities.
So Absolutely, and I guess in a world where they're trying to make travel by personal car, less attractive, they're trying
Yeah,
to push everybody towards using public transport where they can. There really has to be that certainty that you can complete every journey every 100% of the time without that added stress, and you
yeah,
don't really have that confidence yet.
yeah. And I think it's also important that maybe there's an element of staff training in there for some, because I travel by bus as well, but probably more so by train because I'm going into the city for things or whatever. But I've had it, I've had it said to me before. Um, we we don't normally have a passenger assist on the last train, and that actually makes my blood boil when people say that, because it's always like saying, but disabled people shouldn't be out at 11, 12 o'clock at night because we should be tucked up in bed with a hot chocolate or whatever. So I think for me, there's just a bit of a maybe a different approach or a shift in attitude, or no, maybe more a shift in understanding.
Mhm.
Maybe because if you don't know what you don't know, if you're just going by assumption of what you think you know or what you think is the case, then it's just a bit more about being open and educating people to actually people disabled people can go out at midnight. We don't turn into pumpkins if we're not home by a certain time.
It's
So
not like Gremlins, is it?
no, no,
And that's exactly it. And I noticed your anxiety levels when you were planning things when you didn't before you have your van, because just
yeah,
that not being sure and having to have a plan B and a plan C. Even with your power chair, sometimes you would book an accessible taxi, and the one
yeah.
that would turn up wouldn't be fit for purpose. It wouldn't. You couldn't get
Yeah,
into it.
or even my wheelchair at one point wasn't fit for purpose, because I'm quite fortunate in that I'll touch wood when I say this, but I've got a new chair and it's really reliable and it seems to be going really well. But I had a chair before that that was my new chair, and it wouldn't. It lasted 2 days, and I had to tell them to come and get it and bring back my old one until they could get me this one, because the chair that they gave me wouldn't go up a taxi ramp. And when I highlighted this to the engineer, I was initially told, well, maybe you shouldn't take it up a taxi ramp. And I'm kind of like, well, at that point, going in taxis was something I had to do on a regular, if not daily basis. So how can I not take it up a taxi ramp? But also, there's going to be an occasion that I'm going up a hill, because not everywhere is on the flat. So if it's not going to manage a taxi ramp, it's not going to manage a hill. So how do you live your life? You can't. So yeah, and sometimes you had the have to experience them, as you say, booking a taxi and then they send a non-accessible taxi, and you're like, but I told you it had to be accessible. So you have that conversation. So yeah, it's fair to say every day is a bit unpredictable when you live with the challenges of disability, but it keeps you on your toes, so to speak.
It does indeed. And I guess that like you say, that last story, I think it really illustrates that when somebody's solution is, well, why don't you change your expectations about your life to make it easier for me, rather than how about I make sure that what I give you is fit for purpose. And hopefully you would hope that first time round somebody would, what's going to be fit for purpose and make sure they give you it, rather than giving you something shoddy and then you having to deal with that stress of, oh no, don't tell me this is what I'm going to be left with.
Yeah, in the end, with the wheelchair, I think the engineer actually came and saw that I couldn't get it up a taxi ramp, and he actually said that he was going to have to feed that back to the wheelchair company.
Yeah,
So I think it was part of a leveling up for them, which can only
well,
be a positive, hopefully.
Well, fingers crossed they've learned to double check all the specs
Yeah,
of what they're doing first of
yeah,
all before
absolutely.
they roll it out. June's just shared another part of her experience about some great professionals like Karen. I was able to purchase something, so it was for her. It was an unbreakable bed for her brother through the support of his social worker. So June's brother, part of his kind of stimming is bouncing on his bed, and he will break them. So I mean, that's a case where if somebody says, oh well, we're only going to fund an ordinary bed because anything else is too expensive, then you just end up with a pile of kindling on a regular basis.
Yeah,
So it's good if you get that support to say, actually, this is why it's different, this is what's important, and that's what that would look like. Brilliant. I'm going to put up a link here just to this is a link to the Self-Management Fund. Just to say a big thanks to them for supporting the work of the Person Centred Planning Academy and all the other Self-Management Fund work that they do. And check that out. And the Go On Your Cell, the whole self-management kind of plan that they've got on their website, because again, all that stuff can be, I think, really positive, really empowering when you're starting to think, is this it? You know, there are opportunities for better.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Danielle, any other final observations before we sign off for Self-Management Week?
I would
Seminar?
just say to anyone watching, in terms of self management, only you know how to do that for yourself. The keyword is self. So there's great support out there from professionals and other sources. But at the end of the day, you know what's best. So work with the people that are around you to support you to get the best result for you.
Brilliant. We've got a thanks from Karen and from Pauline about the power of relationships. Perfect. Which
Yeah,
is
it's
really good.
important to have people in your corner. If you have that, yeah, the other challenges will not seem so challenging if you have the right people in your corner.
For sure. And obviously, this is just day 2 of Self-Management Week. So if you check out the Alliance, check out what else is on as part of Self-Management Week and find out what works for you. And you can always get in touch, be part of our mailing list, find out more about what we can offer to support you with that as well. Okay, thanks for watching, everybody.
Yeah,
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Perfect. Okay, we've got a thank you from June to finish us off. Okay, bye-bye.